Well, I'm sure some of you know that in relationships, a mother-in-law can be foreboding or she can be sweet. Well, I was lucky. I had the most wonderful mother-in-law in the world. And I'm sincerely here to deliver a speech. It was a winning speech when he gave it back in 2014 at the club and the area international speech contests. And because, like I may have been mentioned, this past Thursday, it was the 100th anniversary of the day she was born. So to honor his mother, my husband Ken is here to give us a speech.
Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. Would you like to hear a story?
Sure.
Good. Once upon a time, there were two little boys, and they were playing with matches. Picture this. Crouched in a narrow alleyway, the 6-year-old boy watches intently as his 8-year-old brother tries to light a match. Once, twice, 3 times he tries. On the 4th try, a flickering flame leaps into life. The acrid odor of sulfur fills the air. He holds the match under a crisp brown oak leaf, which immediately bursts into bright flame and quickly dims to a gray ash. Laughing and frightened delight, the two boys bolt down the alleyway and then saunter out into the inner city back street, the very picture of innocence. Stop looking at each other with the shared smile of a secret adventure. But later that day, when they returned home, there stood their mother, hands on her hips. "What's this I heard you boys playing with matches?" Well, the 6-year-old is stunned into silence, and the 8-year-old can only stammer. "Who? How?" The only fire now is in their mother's eyes, and their angry gaze swivels from one boy to the other. "Never forget, no matter where you go, someone's going to know me and going to find out what you did." Well, the 2 little boys took the message to heart, never play with matches again, and lived happily ever after. The moral of my story? If you live your life as if your mother was watching everything that you do, you too will live happily ever after. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I have a confession to make. That 6-year-old boy was me. And that omniscient lady was none other than my dear mother, Stella. Mommy, I called her at the time. And she was the best mommy any little boy could ask for. Even those times when she'd find me out. Not only did she have a spy network that would make the NSA green with envy, she also had the wisdom of Solomon. For example, about the same time, she was a devout Catholic. So of course, when she was at church on Sunday, we all went to church on Sunday. But you see, babies don't go to church. I learned there's something called the age of reason. You know the Catholics in the audience? 7 years old is the age of reason. Well, I was 6 and a half. So I walked up to my mother on Sunday morning and said, "I'm not going to church." What? I learned the age of reason is 7 years old and I'm 6 and a half. My mother looked at me with that penetrating stare of hers. "If you can figure that out, you've reached the age of reason. Now get dressed." Oh, boy. As years went by, her name changed from Mommy to Mom. And it always seemed she was staying one step ahead of her 4 children, 4 boys. At least it seemed that way to us. She was also a keeper of family tradition, a consummate hostess, and she was never happier than when she presided over large holiday gatherings with the extended family seated all around. She never wanted to see any trouble among the family, especially on those special occasions. But I remember one Easter morning when I was 17, when those endearing traits were sorely tested. Now, Easter breakfast is a tradition in the Krawchuk family, going back generations, back to the old country and beyond. That morning, there had been 20 people seated around a huge table, heaped high with Polish delicacies. kibasi, babka, płatki, studinia, so much more. The air was melange and rich aromas, and the whole house echoed with a sybaritic celebration of the ending of Lent, when unexpectedly, the phone rang. Of course, Mom, she got up, walked over, answered it, looked directly at me, and said, "Thank you, Peggy," and hung up. Well, I could tell from that look, I was in trouble. But Mom just reclaimed her seat, and we went on with our wonderful breakfast. It wasn't until the last guest left that she cornered me. Do you remember that phone call? That was Mrs. Dealey, and you know what she told me? She said, "You and her Michael were out in their garage last night smoking pot." No matter where you go. Fortunately, I was innocent of the charge. But then what that said about Mom, there's no way she would have ruined that perfect breakfast. And certainly not without hearing all sides of the case. And when I presented my side of it, I'm not sure she believed me. "You better not be lying to me. You may be 17, but you'll never be too big for me to take you over my knee." And I believed her, believe you me. Years went by. I grew into full adulthood, married, started a career, got children, and Mom's name changed. This time we started calling her Mother. But there was no change in her caring and wisdom, although she could still throw me off in some of the directions she'd take with it. For example, when I was 35, I came across a lucrative opportunity to start my own information technology consulting firm. Incorporate, hire employees, the whole kit and caboodle. I was worried. I was afraid that striking out on my own would just turn into simply striking out. Of course, I went to Mom for her advice. She listened to me quietly, hand on her cheek.
"Kenneth, do it, because if you don't, you're going to regret it the rest of your life."
Well, I learned back when I was 6 years old not to question what my mother said. So I quit my day job, hung up my shingle, and much to my surprise, the venture was wildly successful. Of course, Mother, she just tossed off one of her favorite lines.
"I have faith in my boys, and you should have more faith in yourself, too."
As the years went by, Mother faced innumerable challenges, and she met each one with the same characteristic of plum. For example, when her gallbladder had the gall to malfunction, out it came. When her husband passed away, she presided over that luncheon to celebrate his life with the same calm confidence as if it were just another Easter breakfast. And on her 87th birthday, not only did she preside over yet another Easter breakfast, she ferried her infirm neighbor Leona to and from church beforehand. When she was having a little trouble catching her breath, there was no question she was going to get that heart valve replaced.
"But not until after my granddaughter's wedding, thank you."
And on the night before she went to the hospital, guess what she did? She threw a big Polish dinner for the family. And for dessert, half-jokingly, she served up some final words.
"You boys listen to me. Nothing's more important than family. So you boys stay together. You hear me? You boys stay together."
Well, the next morning in the recovery room, her oldest son was there to return the joke. "Well, Mother, looks like you'll have to come up with some new final words." As it turned out, though, those words would have to do. 3 days later, complications set in, and her long years of giving came to a quiet end. We call her Saint Stella now, and not really for the long, saintly life she lived, but more for the blessing that she bestowed on us, the family. And although she's moved on to claim her eternal reward, her well-justified eternal reward, there is no question she still watches down over her 4 boys, and their 6 wives, and their 11 grandchildren, and 8 grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the one on the way, and the great-great-grandson. And there's also no question that her wisdom, her prayers, and her love still follow them all,
No matter where they go.
The moral of my story? If you live your lives in the style of Saint Stella, not only will you live happily ever after, but so will all those around you, no matter where you may go. Toastmasters.